What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the reveal of the number 15 team in my 2021 NFL Power Rankings with a deep dive into the Los Angeles Chargers. Before we get started, a quick reminder to please do hit that like button down below to show your support for the series. Really helps me out. Also, if you enjoy, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss an upload as we count down to the number one team in my Power Rankings. And the Chargers here coming in at 15, relatively similar to the team we just did at 16 in the Cardinals, a young team with a decent amount of moving pieces, certainly a lot to prove, but also a really exciting upside on top of that. And the Chargers also coming in at 15 are the highest ranking team for next season that has a new head coach, which speaks volumes about a lot of things that we're going to get into in this deep dive. But I want to start by going over their offseason that was yet another really nice offseason for the Chargers. I think this front office with Tom Telesco is one of the more underrated front offices in the NFL, especially from a scouting perspective. It feels like when they make a move, more often than not, it does pan out for this team. But that does not mean that they were without some losses over the last few months. Of course, the full coaching staff getting overhauled here, most would say addition by subtraction, as Anthony Lynn and that staff is going to be on the way out as they bring in Brandon Staley. But also losing Hunter Henry, gets a big contract to go over to New England, and then especially on the defensive side of the ball, losing frankly 4 quality starters here with Melvin Ingram, that running mate to Joey Bosa, going to have to be replaced on the edge. Denzel Perriman was a big impact in the run defense and brought some physicality to that front seven last year. Casey Hayward has been such a stud in that zone-heavy system for so long. They're going to have to get some people to step up at corner there. And then Rayshon Jenkins, not maybe as big of a deal as they're getting Derwin James back, but still someone that played well enough to earn a very massive contract for the Jags, whether that was appropriate or not. He's still a quality starter that is on the way out here. But doing some nice things to supplement those losses. I think very clearly, most will agree they will likely be upgrading with their staff, bringing in Brandon Staley. I like Brandon Staley, but throughout the summer, I've been even more convinced, just kind of hearing him throughout the summer after the draft, and as people have learned even more about him, because he's a guy that really shot up through the woodworks and almost came out of nowhere. But a former quarterback and a guy that, yes, he's a defensive mind, and yes, he's going to bring that Fangio defense over, but also a guy that is going to have his paws on really the entire organization and play some of that CEO type role as well. So I am a believer in Brandon Staley. I think probably the best head coach they've had in, I don't know, a decade plus. And then the Joe Lombardi hire on top of it. If you are going to go with a defensive head coach, it's important to get a really sound offensive coordinator in there. And I think Joe Lombardi is also going to bring a lot of experience as a guy that's been around the league and really witnessed the proper way to prepare for games, working under Sean Payton there in New Orleans. So I'm a big fan of the staff moves they've made, and it's even grown on me over the last few months. And then they do sign Jared Cook to, maybe be a little bit more of a veteran Band-Aid there, as they lose Hunter Henry. And then, man, you have got to love what they did with this offensive line. They were one of the worst in the league last year at that O-line group, and they just said, screw it. We ain't doing that again. We're not going to be the Cincinnati Bengals and let our young franchise quarterback tear his ACL in week 8 because he can't get any pass protection. So they go out and pay Corey Linsley. How he was available, I don't know, but he was, and they said, we want him. They bring in Rashawn Slater, who falls to them in the draft, a steal that was. They signed Matt Filer, who is going to be a starting guard, but also provides a tackle who can play with experience there for when Brian Bulaga inevitably misses 6 games. And then even Ode Abushi, an underrated guard. So they signed 4 starters after signing another, the only guy not listed here is Brian Bulaga, who they added last year. So completely overhauling that offensive line really overnight. Really impressive work there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they draft Asante Samuel Jr. Again, how the hell do the Chargers keep getting these things? I don't know how Corey Linsley was available for them. I don't know how Derwin James was available for them when they took him, but they seem to be the team that is really good at capitalizing on the other on the other teams in the league missing on dudes, and I think Asante Samuel is going to be that case again. And then getting Derwin James back healthy. Please stay healthy, Derwin. He is one of my favorite players in the league. I got his jersey hanging up behind me. You guys can't see it, but I do believe when healthy, he is the best safety in the NFL, and we'll talk about all these guys further in depth as we go here. But obviously a pretty good offseason here. There are some question marks, some pieces leaving that they're going to have to replace. But yeah, another great offseason for the Chargers. And now we are going to go through the entire roster, ranking each position group, how they stack up against the rest of the league. And that is going to start with the quarterback, where they are going to rank 9th in the NFL with Justin Herbert. And a shameless plug here, I just did a Justin Herbert film room on my Patreon, so if you want to check that out, you support the channel and take a little dive into Justin Herbert there, taking a look at his Week 16 game against Denver. It's patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. But anyway, coming in at 9th, and man alive, did Justin Herbert prove myself and many people wrong last year. I'm not afraid to admit it. Just such an explosive rookie season. But it wasn't the stats for me. It was what he showed on film, because I had two major criticisms of him coming out of Oregon that, if you watch his tape at Oregon, I think were fair, and many people agreed. Number one was I thought he was a little bit of a first read player, and building off of that is my second criticism, in that, later on in the play, I really was not impressed with Herbert. Frankly, I was disappointed often in what I saw, whether it was, the ability to get to a second read, the ability to sense pressure and manipulate the pocket and know when to extend plays, and even beyond that, often making kind of head-scratching, boneheaded mistakes outside of structure. And that's where a lot of the Mitchell Trubisky comps came in as a prospect, but he hit the ground running and almost shook all of that off within the first few weeks. My first game, I was like, okay, let's see if those things creep back up. I kept looking for those things that I saw at Oregon, and I'm like, who is this Justin Herbert? It's a completely new man. So whether something clicked, getting NFL coaching, there was a moment in Hard Knocks that I love to call back to when I think it was Anthony Lynn or Pep Hamilton, the quarterback coach there, just one of their first practices, they had to tell Justin Herbert in walkthroughs to go through your progressions. And I'm like, in the 4 years at Oregon, was the staff there not telling him to go through his progressions? Like, little stuff like that, moving to the next level, something may have just clicked, or it's just the coaching and the scheme with more of a horizontal offense at Oregon, something really clicked for Herbert. But man, either way, those criticisms just were not there from Justin Herbert in the NFL. I thought when you look at that film room I did, and throughout the rest of the year as well, he started to really make high-end decisions from the pocket, hanging in there tough, which is something I didn't really think he did at Oregon. But he also added on top of that, right? He showed a good pocket presence that came out of nowhere for me. That was maybe my biggest knock on him, was he just couldn't sense pressure. But he did in the NFL, and he got a lot of it, and he made some amazing plays, whether it was hanging tough in the pocket or getting out and showing off that arm on the move, where he also didn't make a bunch of boneheaded mistakes like he did at Oregon. So looked like a completely new man, and I hope this is evidence that, yes, I'm going to have my opinion on college prospects, but I watch all the games in the NFL too, and when you prove those criticisms wrong at the level that Herbert did, I'm now sitting here and I don't really have any true knocks on Herbert. I think he's got top 5 arm talent in the NFL. At worst, he has a truly elite arm, that C-ball, hit ball arm. He is accurate. I think his processing for a rookie was good, certainly better than most rookies, and for a young player, you expect that to continue to develop. I like his pocket presence, his poise in the pocket, his decision making. There's so much to like in Justin Herbert's game right now, and now it's just a matter of him consistently showing it throughout time and continuing to develop some of that processing stuff that you would say about any young quarterback. But I think right now you're looking at a Matthew Stafford-esque player with elite physical tools and a maybe good, not great processor at this point in time. But now it's just like, if he really starts to hit the mental side of the game in a Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers-esque fashion where he is just seeing the field so well. The sky's the limit for Herbert to get into the elite of the elite conversation. I can't wait to watch Herbert this season. So again, ranking 9th right now with potential to improve upon that. There are some people mentioning signs for statistical regression. I think that's fair. Just when you look at like the amount of deep balls under pressure that they connected on, just to be realistic, those are very unstable metrics for everybody in the NFL. That's including the Mahomes and Rodgers of the world. So maybe statistically, game by game, Herbert might not actually have as big of a season. But I think when you look at getting a better offensive line and playing in structure, getting that first real offseason as a quarterback that was a rookie coming into a COVID season last year, I think there's a good chance that we're talking about Herbert as a better quarterback, even if the statistical stuff isn't as high, and that's definitely the way I operate on this channel. So sky's the limit for Herbert. Can't wait to watch him. Coming in the top 10 as a year 2 quarterback, super impressive stuff. Proving myself and a ton of people wrong there. And then you do have Chase Daniel, who's a decent backup. Good to know he's there if you need him to, spot in for a quarter here, a quarter there. And Easton Stick with some athleticism. They try to get him going on the Wildcat, and it just don't. Just keep Herbert on the field, please. We don't need to see Easton Stick. Justin Herbert can run, and you're not signaling to the other team that you're going to be running Wildcat. So that's my thoughts on that, ranking 9th at quarterback. Then we have the running back room, and I need to explain this a little bit because they come in 27th, and I can see Chargers fans coming at me for that, but just hear me out. I include running backs in the receiving grade, right? So when I grade the running back here, a lot of this is about the actual running contributions. Now, there's a little bit of balance there. The receiving does factor in. It's complicated. I can't explain my whole process there, but I love Austin Eckler. I think he is one of the most... they get the most value out of him because he got a nice $8 million contract, but he contributes at a super high level, and he's a phenomenal receiving back. As a true running back, he's top 25, top 30. He's got some straight line speed. I think if you get him going on some more outside zones, which they've talked about potentially doing, you could see him contribute at a higher level in the running game. But I see him as a true elite third down back who can contribute as a runner, but just strictly speaking as a runner, I don't think he's all that outstanding. He doesn't have a ton of power. I think his vision's good. He can fight for some tough yards. He's a good running back. There's a lot of good running backs in the NFL. So that's just my justification there. And then you have Justin Jackson as your halfback too. I'm fine with that. I think he's a tough, gritty runner and can get you some tough yards. He's a good receiving back as well. Nice compliment to Austin Eckler. Josh Kelly looked really explosive as well. Say what you want about Anthony Lynn, but he did a great job with really all these guys and getting them to play up to their potential. So I think that carries over, even with Anthony Lynn gone. I think his work is done here, and they're going to be just fine at running back. You've got your quality, modern Austin Eckler speedy back, and then a couple mid-round picks, and that's really all you need in the NFL. So that's about as much time as I'm going to spend there. They also draft Larry Roundtree as a developmental guy who has some upside with physical traits. But yeah, 27th at running back. And let's just move on to the receiving grade, where they're going to come in tied for 10th, and that's when you can already see Austin Eckler getting that 87 grade as a receiving back, bumping this thing up a little bit. But this does start with Keenan Allen, who is a true number one, still maybe one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL. I think he's up there with the best route runners in the NFL. I don't think he's physically as quick and as fast as the Diggs and Coopers and Devontae Adams of the world, but from a technical standpoint, he might be the most polished receiver in the entire NFL. He's got really good ball skills as well. He's tough after the catch. I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. I always have been, and it's been good to see him at least get some of the respect he deserves as a top 10 receiver over the last couple of years. And then you have kind of the ideal complementary perimeter receiver in Mike Williams, who honestly, I think he's kind of maxed out. You know, he's a really nice number 2 receiver on the outside, great ball skills, 6'4", physical dude, Underrated after the catch as well. I think when they get him going on slants and crossing routes, he shows some good acceleration after the catch and can break some arm tackles. So he adds a little bit more there than your typical, kind of balanced boundary possession receiver. But I don't think he's going to be an alpha anywhere. Just because of the route running and the separation ability, it's not at that level. But as a complement to Keenan Allen, it is, like I said, ideal. And we'll see if he gets paid here. If he stays healthy and has a big year, I think they might pay him. But they have a lot of big contracts looming, and you have a player here in Tyron Johnson, who, let me tell you, man, I went back and rewatched the entire Chargers season since the draft, and I'm just sitting there like, why is nobody talking about how good Tyron Johnson was? Not good, how great Tyron Johnson was. I don't say this lightly. He looked like Deshaun Jackson last year for the Chargers, paired with Justin Herbert's arm talent. I mean, this guy has really nice upside to actually replace Mike Williams as this team's number 2 receiver. And again, I don't say that lightly. It was a limited sample size. It was 350 snaps. But why can't he become that player? He has legit speed. He was slept on at Oklahoma State, surrounded by, a pretty good group of receivers there at the time with James Washington and Marcel Aitman. He was like the third guy in that explosive Mason Rudolph-led offense. But now getting an opportunity, he looks like a legit deep threat, full-time starter in the NFL, and I think that they would be smart to experiment with him as a long-term replacement to Mike Williams, who actually, with Justin Herbert's skill set, might actually be a better option long-term than Mike Williams because of that speed that you're not really getting with Keenan Allen either. So super high expectations for Tyron Johnson. I don't know where he's going in fantasy drafts and stuff, but he feels like a guy that should be there around 14, 15, 16. Take this player. I'm telling you, Tyron Johnson is a diamond in the rough. Not a guarantee. Small sample size, undrafted dude that totally broke out last year. He could be another Robert Foster who just disappears after a year, but I believe in this kid, and his tape is super impressive. And then you have Jalen Guyton, who was kind of the same thing on a less stable level. I think Guyton's hands and ball tracking ability did give you some cause for concern, but he's another guy with great route running and speed, and paired with Justin Herbert's deep ball ability is an outstanding fourth guy to have. They draft Josh Palmer in the 3rd round. I've questioned Tom Telesco and this staff before, and they made me look stupid with the Justin Herbert thing, but I will stand to my evaluation here. I did not think Josh Palmer was worth a 3rd round pick. I had him as a day 3 guy. He's a tough player. He has good route running ability. I don't see the high-end traits. Now, with Keenan Allen as a mentor, could he fall into that same mold as a guy that really polishes his game and wins without the lack of with the lack of physical traits, just as Keenan Allen has? I wouldn't be the most surprised, especially with that mentor role in Keenan Allen, but that is going to be his path to success, is becoming an elite release and route runner type, not necessarily just winning with his athleticism. You have Joe Reed here as well, was one of my favorite picks that this team made last year. Is kind of Deebo Samuel-esque in his skill set as a guy that can be really nice with the ball in his hands, a manufactured touch guy, a great kick returner as well. He's going to have limited opportunities here, but I'm a believer in Joe Reed. I think he can become a starting slot receiver someday, which is a skill set that they're kind of lacking here. They do have KJ Hill and Austin Prohl. I like KJ Hill, just not a great athlete. And then they have Jason Moore here. So going to be a bit of a competition. I think they probably keep 7 of these guys at wide receiver. And then the tight end room as well is fascinating. You bring in Jared Cook, who's still cooking, pun intended. But he is getting up there in age. I remember playing with Jared Cook in like Madden 10, which seems like forever ago, but is that kind of freak athlete type. Has drop issues, not a great blocker, but if schemed up correctly, he can contribute. We've seen him now in Green Bay and New Orleans have some nice seasons with high-end quarterback play. So I'm not ruling out Jared Cook being a quality tight end here, even at his age and having a bit of a down year last year. But Donald Parham, had to put that up arrow next to him, an XFL superstar, but he just kind of has this intriguing allure about him. He's like 6'7". He's more of a college receiver, but he's been gaining weight and kicked ass, took names in the XFL as a guy that doesn't just have size and ball skills and red zone ability, but legit speed as well, as like a 4'6", 40 guy, maybe even in the 4'5s. Really intriguing player here, kind of Darren Waller-esque as far as the upside and the project mentality with Donald Parham. But when he played last year, he contributed. He was very efficient catching touchdowns and moving the chains last year. So, man, with Jared Cook kind of as a mentor there too, I like that. Donald Parham, super polarizing and intriguing to me. Excited to see what he has to the table. Another, dynasty league sleeper. Keep your eye on Donald Parham if you need a tight end. You got Steven Anderson, good athletic tight end, can get moved around and schemed up nicely. Trey McKitty was an interesting 4th round pick. That's about as early as I would have taken him. I don't think he's a 3rd round pick. That is actually a little bit early, but he's fine. He's a good blocker. He has like massive 11-inch hands, which should help him just have super reliable hands. So with some speed, some run blocking, and good hands, he could turn into a decent starter. Just not the most explosive player in my opinion. So that's probably your tight end room, is those 4. And then the running backs, Austin Eckler does help this grade here. He has speed out of the backfield. He's one of the better route runners. He has consistent hands. He will run away from guys, but also make guys miss and break off arm tackles. One of the premium receiving backs in the NFL, and a super nice weapon in this offense for Justin Herbert. And then you have Justin Jackson, who's got some shiftiness and ball skills, and then you have Josh Kelly, who showed some nice things as well. So you really have three running backs that are good players that can contribute, and Austin Eckler, who is a great receiving back. So again, tied for 10th, a really nice receiving core here for Justin Herbert. But the offensive line, as I mentioned, you got to be excited what this front office was able to do for this group, going from what was very likely, worst or bottom 3 offensive line last year to now 15th in the league. So a huge jump up. That is going to be the biggest thing you look for. Seeing a difference in Herbert's game, getting so much more time to throw from the pocket here. 15th for 2021 with the potential to even be higher than that. So let's start with Brian Bulaga, because he's the only guy that's not new here. And they signed Brian Bulaga last year. Now, him getting injured on the Chargers, of all teams who just can't seem to stay healthy, was about the most predictable thing in the entire NFL last year. And again, I just don't expect him to play 16 games. Now, he's healthy now and should be able to start and hopefully give you 10 games, would be an optimistic projection for Bulaga. But even when he was out there last year, was getting beat. So, I think he's trending down, and they're going to be smart to potentially look for a long-term replacement at right tackle. But you hope just this year, just please stay healthy for one more year, Brian Bulaga, so they can have a sound offensive line and not have a weak link. But they also bring in Rashawn Slater to play left tackle here. To me, was a steal where they got him. I was stunned that some of the teams ahead of him did not take Rashawn Slater. So falling into their lap almost in, kind of Derwin James-esque fashion for this team. But, he's going to step in day one, be a quality both pass protector and run blocker. He has the best first step I've ever seen from a college prospect. I wasn't doing this back when Trent Williams came out, but it is Trent Williams-esque the way he's able to climb to the second level and get out of his stance. And at his height, at 6'3", it helps him be a very good run blocker as well. So I'm a big fan of Rashawn Slater. You got to be excited about getting him in here, and he should only get better. Coming off the opt-out last year. But that is a quote-unquote question mark. Any rookie tackle, we got a little spoiled last year with last year's class. You typically don't expect those guys to come in and be perfect from day one. So we'll see what he can bring as a rookie, but still a great draft pick and should be Justin Herbert's left tackle for a long time there. But then the signing of Corey Linsley, the fact that he was even available was incredible, and then they were the team that got him. They just went all in and were like, yes, we need Corey Linsley. The center position has been iffy here. Pouncey has had a hard time staying healthy, and Corey Linsley is just an absolute rock And not just his ability to win one-on-ones is going to be valuable here, but just the leadership, experience, and ability to call out blitz protections and taking that a little bit off of Justin Herbert's plate. It's all huge here. It's almost identical to the Cardinals adding Rodney Hudson last deep dive. So huge upgrade there. And then you upgrade both of your guard spots, bringing in Matt Filer, who's been a rock for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little bit stiff, but has been good at both guard and tackle, and he's a powerful player with the flexibility that I love to play right tackle if and when Brian Bulaga gets hurt. Just gives you really nice flexibility there. So a nice signing. They got him on a budget too, a pretty nice, friendly, I think it was 3 years, $21 million for a quality right guard. I think that's a perfectly good deal. And then Ode Abushi, he was an under-the-radar signing after all of these other moves they made, but he's been a quality starter for the Lions. And for him to be your quote-unquote weak link, he might have been their best offensive lineman last year, and now he's their fifth guy. So just massively overhauling the starting group here. The depth is still very, very much a problem here. You have, I guess, Scott Kessenberry as interior flexibility. When Brian Bulaga gets hurt, you're probably looking at Filer coming in at right tackle and Kessenberry at right guard. And then it's just kind of projects beyond that. You have Trey Pipkins, who was a third-round pick with some athleticism. If he can be developed, he has upside even to become the long-term right tackle, but he's a long way from that. Do keep an eye on Storm Norton. It's another XFL guy there, but he has the traits. He's lengthy, 6'7", and has some technique. I don't mind Storm Norton. And then they draft Brennan James as well in the 5th round. Now, they're talking about him at guard. I don't like that. He has virtually no anchor, but he has really nice pass protection technique. So that combination of guys, I wouldn't be surprised if you end up with a decent backup tackle, better than what they had last year, but it's just hard to count on any of those guys. And then everybody else here, it's just a shot in the dark that they can even make the team. So that's your offensive line, ranking 15th, and can't be more impressed. It's got to be the most improved unit in the entire NFL, honestly, is the Chargers' offensive line. So well done, Tom Telesco and these Chargers. The offense as a whole comes in 12th. Just a very good, balanced offense. You're looking at top 15 at every position group. The only question mark is going to be just kind of the new coaching staff, the cohesiveness, and putting it all together really is what this is all about. But there's no reason this can't be a top 10 offense. As far as what the scheme is going to be, Joe Lombardi's going from Drew Brees to Justin Herbert. It doesn't get much different than that. So I'm really excited to see what kind of offense he wants to run. I don't think he's handicapped to running that West Coast quick-hitting offense. I think they implement some of that Sean Payton stuff, but I think Lombardi does get creative, and he's talked about maybe running some wide zone stuff, getting some of the Shanahan influences in there. I think that's very smart, given Herbert's skill set to throw on the move. So I'm just excited for this offense as a whole. To rank 12th with some of the youth and new staff there, it does speak volumes, and I would say I almost expect them to exceed that by season's end. And now let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Brandon Staley taking over this unit. Really going to be fun to see how they deployed all these different guys. And let's start with the run defense. So the Chargers have been slowly improving their run defense. After like 2018, they were just a laughing stock against the run. So they've been making some moves here and now changing scheme again. I really struggled here. And, Chargers fans, you can chime in. I struggled with how to list this base defense. They are a 3-4 base in Brandon Staley's scheme. But Joey Bosa being here complicates some things because I don't see Joey Bosa as a true 3-4 defensive end, and I don't see him as an outside linebacker either. So the way I'm painting this is also going off of what the Rams did last year is, I think it's kind of a nickel base, which is, it's 2021. A lot of these teams have been putting a true base, 3-4, 4-3 up here, but I think we very rarely see base 3-4 here. So I'm not going to paint that picture. I think this is a 3-3-5 odd base front is my projection. And I could be off here. I could be totally wrong, but that's the way I'm going to paint this right now. So you're going to have Linval Joseph and Justin Jones as your two defensive tackles there, with Linval being more of the nose tackle. Those guys are very capable run defenders. Linval has slowed down, but he's still certainly good enough. And Justin Jones is kind of emerging. So you're fine there. Neither of those are dominant run defenders, I would say, but certainly good enough. And then, Joey Bosa being kind of that 5 technique, right? And he is a stud against the run. He's lengthy, powerful, plays with a high motor, you name it. So there's your kind of starting 3 up front. And then the interior defensive line depth, there's no one I'm all that excited about. I do like the Christian Covington signing. I think he'll rotate and split some time there. And you got 3 guys there, right? That's totally fine. They got Jerry Tillery, who in this look here, maybe could take some time off of Joey Bosa as that kind of early down, more edge type of defensive end. He's kind of in that same hybrid conversation with Joey Bosa, so I think that's kind of where this gets complicated with what the front truly is here. But he just is not a good run defender. He plays upright and has no idea what the opponent's trying to run, so he will talk about as a pass rusher a little more. You got Braden Fajoko and Cortez Broughton. Okay, do keep an eye on Jared Goldwire. Was one of my guys in this draft as a day 3 diamond, and they get him as an undrafted pickup. The thing that impresses me about Jared Goldwire is he was asked to play as kind of an undersized nose tackle at Louisville. I gotta remember, what is his size here? I think he's 6'5", 300 pounds. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, 6'5", 292, what he's getting listed at here. But played nose tackle at Louisville and still dominated the run despite that frame. At 6'5", 295 pounds, you're expecting Jerry Tillery, right? You're expecting guys to fly off the ball and get their pads underneath your pad level and drive you back, because that's what we see with Jerry Tillery, and frankly, that's what I saw from Tillery in college as well, but not with Jared Goldwire. He plays tough. He plays low. I was really surprised to see him go undrafted. So we'll see if he makes the team. Obviously, he's an undrafted guy, but I think he could become someday this team's best run defender out of this entire group. Forrest Merrill as well, a high effort run defender as well. So could get something there. Decent undrafted pickups. But on the edge, it's a very hybrid, complicated group right now, as they're definitely undergoing a scheme change here. I talked about how some of the awkwardness with Joey Bosa and Uchenna Nwosu. You can't have 2 more polar opposite types of edge players, right? Bosa is that bigger-bodied guy who you do want with his hand in the dirt, whereas Nwosu, he's a lighter guy. You actually want him off the ball a little bit, or at least with his hand up, and you can drop him into coverage and let him use that kind of quickness playing in a 2-point stance. So you couldn't get any more opposite, and you can see it as the depth chart goes down. You have some more of those guys for that edge outside backer position with Kyler Fackrell. They draft Chris Rumpf, both kind of undersized hybrid types, and then even Emeka Egbule, who's kind of an off-ball edge hybrid as well, and Lemonier. All those guys are kind of under 240 pounds. Whereas Joe Gaziano, much more Joey Bosa-esque, as more of a 5 technique, even a 4-eye, maybe even a 3-4 defensive end. It's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to see Brandon Staley come into a new team and what he decides to do with this front. I think it's a fascinating project, really. So Chargers fans, you guys can chime in on, I'm sure people are going to disagree with who I list here and where I list them, but I think it is going to be very multiple up front. I think you do see 2 linebackers starting, whether they're in a base 3-4 or this 3-3-5 odd, and I think it's Drew Tranquill and Kenneth Murray. They spent that first-round pick on Kenneth Murray, and he had his ups and downs, as basically every rookie linebacker does. I still like Kenneth Murray. I love his leadership, his tackling ability. He showed some nice flashes in coverage as well, so it's just a matter of him developing as a young linebacker, but no knocks on Kenneth Murray at this point in time. Just needs to be better, basically. Drew Tranquill next to him could have even been listed as a key addition. He only played about 6 snaps last year before something snapped, whether it was his ACL or something else. But he's coming back. He's a good, balanced number 2 linebacker, instinctive guy. And can play physical against the run. He's okay as a number 2 linebacker. Could probably do better. And then you gotta mention Derwin James, right? We'll see again how he gets used here. Brandon Staley last year was very much a split safety defense, and I don't know if they have the safety depth to use Derwin James as kind of a third box safety either. So, if he's playing a lot of cover 4, he can come down and play the run, but it's going to be difficult for him to be a stable impact and run defense if that's his role. Now, if he plays more of a big nickel, third, bandit, safety, linebacker type role, then you're going to see him get his head in there and be an elite impact in the run. But just difficult to say how all these guys are going to get used. I think they have the bodies to be a good run defense, and certainly if schemed up appropriately and if they kind of buy into the physical nature of playing run defense, which frankly they have not done over the last 5 years or so, and I think not having a good crowd noise actually contributes to that as well, then this could be a much better run defense. Again, they have the bodies. It's just a matter of scheme and culture and player effort, frankly. So 22nd for run defense, not bad. The pass rush is going to be better as they rank 13th. Now, this is such a testament to what Joey Bosa brings to the table. He is a true alpha. I don't think he gets enough credit for being, for me, in the same conversation with Myles Garrett and Khalil Mack and TJ Watt. I think Bosa should be right there with those guys. I think that highly of him, and he is the only reason this ranks 13th. You have your true alpha who must demand a double team, really, is what it comes down to, or a chip. But the other guys here, I just can't get all that excited about any of these other players. I think Uchenna Nwosu has upside, but I just don't know if he has the traits to become a consistent, good number 2. I think he can be a, decent replacement level number 2, a guy that can get you maybe 35 pressures, 5-6 sacks, be a contributor as a cover player. I would say the same thing about Leonard Floyd, who crushed it for the Rams last year, but they also had, the Aaron Donald factor. You're hoping Joey Bosa can do that here, but I don't know. We'll see. His first full year as a starter, letting Melvin Ingram go. I hope he proves me wrong, but I just don't see him as a high-end pass rusher. I think he's fine. On the inside, you're probably looking at Jerry Tillery coming in for Justin Jones much more. We'll see again how they scheme that up. Tillery played a lot of edge last year, and that to me is actually maybe where he has his best chance, is being more of a Calais Campbell, where that power and length shows up a lot more on the edge. Because on the interior, he gets overwhelmed by strength, which he just doesn't have. So I do think he comes in and rotates around and can give you a little bit of something, but it's nothing super exciting. Linval is a big ass dude with some power, but at his age, he's just not a high-end pass rusher. So you have 3 guys that are going to get one-on-ones because Joey Bosa's there, and they're going to get schemed up appropriately. I don't think you get nothing from everybody else. I just wish you had somebody else that you could point to and say they're going to consistently win those one-on-ones, which I just don't really see that here. As far as who else is worth talking about here, we ran through the interior guys earlier. There's really nobody there that has pass rushing upside on the interior. And then as far as the edge goes, you have Fackrell and Rumpf, who are kind of hybrid types like Nwosu, who I just don't think have the upside to be high-end pass rushers. Gaziano's more of a run-defending early down edge player. Egbuile is like a poor man in Nwosu. And Lemonier just, he's been around. He hasn't developed. So I don't know, man. I think they rank well with Joey Bosa in there. He is that dominant force and someone you just have to account for, and he's going to destroy your game plan. So it's awesome that you have that. But everybody else, I don't have very high expectations for. So that's how they come in 13th. And we'll see if Brandon Staley can scheme these guys up and have them outperform that ranking. Then we get to the linebackers here, and they're going to rank 26th at linebacker. I like Kenneth Murray. I think he could someday become a really nice starter. I just don't know if we saw enough from him in his rookie season to say with confidence that he can be that in 2021. But the upside is certainly there. He's got the size, the speed, the character, you name it. It's just a matter of him putting it to the field, right? So this linebacking grade of 26 really is going to live or die based on how much development Kenneth Murray can show in year 2. Because you got Drew Tranquill, who to me kind of is what he is. He's a smart player. Kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type. You could do better, you could do worse. I think you feel fine there. And then Keyz White, who's kind of fallen off. He looked really intriguing as a rookie, but where does he even come into the picture with this scheme, with Derwin James coming back? We'll see. I mean, I could see a world where he plays kind of that bandit, big nickel linebacker role, and Brandon Staley gets a better year out of him. I could also see a year where he just doesn't even see the field, and he's a total non-factor here. That's really the range of outcomes for Keyz White. He's a good athlete with some open field instincts, so we'll see with him. And then Nick Niemann, a decent fifth-round pick. I like the upside there. Showed some, at times, like ability to jump routes and process what the quarterback is seeing. But just from a run defense standpoint, a tackling perspective, there's just a lot of consistency issues there. And again, just a young linebacker that is going to need to truly develop the mental side to become a full-time starter. But the upside is there, is a good pick. You got a couple of undrafted, under-the-radar guys there with Christensen and Lloyd. And then Amin Agbangbemaga is a physical type of developmental project there. I did think was a draftable prospect, but a late day 3 guy. So another decent pickup as they are kind of sorting through this linebacker room, trying to figure out what the future of this group is going to look like around Kenneth Murray. So 26th, really going to live or die based on the development that Kenneth Murray shows you. And then you go to the secondary, kind of a polarizing group. There's a lot to like here, but also I think a lot to criticize as well. So let's start with the corners. And by the way, they're going to rank 12th here in the secondary. So you bring back Michael Davis. He's a quality starter. He's fine. And they're going to stay running a lot of zone coverage where he's comfortable. So I think that's okay. He's not a high-end athlete or a high-end cover player, but it's fine. Could do worse. We have seen much worse for starting cornerbacks in this series. And then can I just rave about Asante Samuel here for 20 minutes? I mean, this was, I think, the steal of the draft, period. Hands down. Mail it in. First off, how was he available late in the second round? What the hell are teams looking at? This dude has insane athleticism, and the type of athleticism that translates to high-end corner play. This short area quickness, the burst, the play speed is exceptional for him. He's not slow. He is like a 4.4 40 guy. He has ball skills. He has the best IQ in zone coverage in this class, in my opinion. Oh, and by the way, they're running zone coverage a ton here with Brandon Staley coming in. I'm looking at you, Green Bay. Why did they just gift this team to the Chargers? Corey Linsley, Asante Samuel, they should be Packers, and they're not. They are Chargers, thanks to Brian Gutekunst. And man, I think he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I've got my bets in already at 20-1. If you're a gambler, throw a little money out there. It's hard for corners to do it, but if he gets 4 or 5 picks in a zone-heavy system as a full-time starter from day one, that should be enough to get him there. I think he's going to tackle well. There's other than the fact that he's not 6'1" and has prototype length, he's insane. He is a almost carbon copy, but a better, faster version of what Brandon Staley had last year in Darius Williams, who was a breakout for them. And if he had the year he had last year as a rookie, he probably would have been Rookie of the Year. So I can't speak highly enough about Asante Samuel. And if he is as good as I'm selling, this is probably going to be a top 10 secondary, but he is a rookie corner, and I have to give an even benefit of the doubt, at least to a certain degree, even though I'm telling you right now, Asante Samuel is going to be a freaking rock star, and there are teams that are going to be saying, why did we take a 6-foot corner ahead of Asante Samuel just because he's taller? That's literally all it comes down to. I can't explain it. There's so many shorter corners in the league. The best corner in the NFL, Jair Alexander, is the same size as Asante Samuel. So I can't explain it, how they got him, but they did, and I can't freaking wait to watch him. This is going to be one of my favorite players in the NFL. I feel very similar about him as I did about Antoine Winfield last year, who somehow ended up in the second round, and look at the year he had. So love that. And then you have Chris Harris in the slot, is getting older. He is slowing down. But I still think going to be one of the better slot corners in the NFL in a zone-heavy system. You don't want him running a ton of man coverage at this stage in his career, but I think he's still going to be a really nice slot corner, and he can play outside as well if you need to, but I don't think he's going to have to with Davis and Samuel there. So decent group of corners. And then you have kind of garbage after that. You got Tavon Campbell, who played last year. There could be something there. He's got some length for that outside zone coverage type of deal. So we'll see. And then Ryan Smith, probably just a special team addition here, but he is a veteran, was on that Super Bowl defense last year. I think he made it through, unless they cut him. But he has some athleticism, but he's a long-term veteran that's never put it to the field. Brandon Facyson, a traitsy developmental guy there. So that's probably your 6. I can't speak much on Vaughn, Hall, or Bannon, but maybe they see something there. And then the safety group, this is where the polarization comes in for me as well, because you got Derwin James. Please God, stay healthy, Derwin James, because this is the thinnest group of safeties we've reviewed to this point. I don't even know if you have a starting caliber player next to Derwin James, which is pretty weird. So you have Nasir Adderley. They have clearly high expectations for him. For him to be your kind of go-to number 2 guy, I don't know. Now, based on his college evaluation in this system, he could work out. I liked his ability to run quarters coverages, to kind of come up a little bit closer to the box and convert into man coverage. My pro count for him coming out was Malcolm Jenkins. So maybe now getting the right coaching and into a much better system, although they did run a lot of quarters last year. So, you can look at that. But, technically speaking, he could work out here. He just has not shown it at all in the NFL. And then Alohi Gilman, just not a high-end athlete. Now, if you're getting to kind of that quarters Fangio defense, he could potentially play there where you're not leaning on that range as much. Smart player, good tackling ability. I personally saw him as just a special teamer coming out. He could prove me wrong, and they have a lot of faith in him, but I just don't see it there. And then you have a couple undrafted pickups in Mark Webb, converting from more of a corner role from Georgia. He's a smart player, and now going from corner to safety, that athletic profile that he lacks is not going to hurt him as much at safety as it did at corner. So there could be something there. He's actually a 7th-round pick, pardon me there. And then Ben DeLuca, a small school prospect with some potential there as well. But that's really what you're talking about with the safeties after Derwin James. Now, I feel like I glossed over Derwin James there and hinted on the lack of depth there first. As I mentioned earlier, I freaking love Derwin James, another one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. So with him and Asante Samuel in the same secondary, needless to say, I'm excited to watch this group, especially with Brandon Staley coaching these guys up. As far as the role he's going to play, I'm curious to see, some schemes that he's played in. He's played kind of that Cam Chancellor role, really close to the box. We've seen him up top as a free safety. He can do anything and everything you ask. As a split safety quarters cover dude, that might be the best role for him because he's got range to, contribute as that too high. You always go to a little cover 2 if you're a quarters defense. So he's got that range up there, but also just the IQ within a quarters coverage. You need to be able to recognize crossers coming from the other side and communicate with the defense and be that kind of captain of the team. He's a super high IQ safety as well. But the other thing with quarters coverages is you are asking them to play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage than like a single high free safety, for example, which means they have to come up and play the run as well, and we know Derwin can do that. So love Derwin James. Please stay healthy and remind these haters that you are the best safety in the NFL, because I do believe that when healthy, he is the best, most impactful safety in the league, and he deserves a payday. But not if he can't stay healthy, frankly. The 12th ranked secondary, and really it comes down to Asante Samuel kind of blowing up to get that into the top 10. But other than that, I think that's about where they come in. They do have some weak spots, I think it's safe to say. So the defense as a whole comes in tied for 14th. I do think they have some weak spots on this defense. They have some super high-end players, obviously, with Bosa and Derwin. I think Samuel goes off, but the pass rush outside of Bosa is I don't think there's a ton of potential there, personally. The run defense should be okay. The secondary should be solid, but I do think it's safe to say there's some weak spots there. So I think that depending on matchups, there's going to be some points where, there's areas for improvement for this defense. Also, the lack of home field. I hate to bring this up, Chargers fans, but most of the top 10 defenses in the NFL have an electric home field advantage because it helps you get that pass rush going. It gives you that extra motivation for the run defense as well, and I think that hurts this defense a little bit too. So I have them coming in tied for 14th for the defense. The defensive coaching is tied for 7th, though. I think Brandon Staley is one of the top ascending defensive minds in the entire league. We kind of talked about the split safety defense and what their front seven might look like already, so I'm not going to get further into the scheme. 14th for defense. Chargers fans can let me know if they think that's too high, too low. And then just a recap for this team as a whole before we get into the schedule here. 12th offense, 14th for defense. And then the special teams tied for 23rd. In theory, they should be pretty good on special teams. They've addressed the kicking game here. They have some return man options. But it's the Chargers, and it seems like no matter who their coach is, they're cursed. And until they prove that they don't lose games because of special teams, I'll see it when I believe it type of deal there. But in theory, should be better. And then the culture, again, just a lot to prove there. New head coach. It's a team that hasn't exactly had the best culture and ability to kind of come together as a team, win those close games, all that stuff. So 24th for the culture. Those are points that might hold this team back a little bit, as they have. It is still the Chargers we're talking about here. But the strengths and weaknesses here, you've got explosiveness at quarterback, if not just quarterback in general being a strength. You've got a balanced surrounding core, good offensive line, really good receiving core, should have a good play caller here. So, they're going to have a lot of different ways to beat you on offense, I think. Defensive coaching should be a strong point. I think if you want to hope the pass rush, if you want a Jerry Tillery or an Nwosu or a Samuel to really break out and exceed the expectations, you're looking at Brandon Staley getting the most out of guys like that, because that's what he did for the Rams with guys like Darius Williams and some of the guys in that front seven as well. So you're hoping for the same thing here for the Chargers. And you got to just say Joey Bosa. I mean, you have one of the premium defensive superstars in the league on your team, and that just forces offenses to game plan around him, and that helps you as a defensive coordinator, just as we saw with Brandon Staley and Aaron Donald. When you know what other teams are going to have to do to stop your dude, it gives you an advantage as far as game planning. So that's what Joey Bosa really brings to the table, in my opinion. And then the weaknesses, you have a lot of moving parts. You have a new staff. You have a lot of players coming in and out here, a young team. So that's a potential weakness, is maybe a slow start, or maybe these things don't all click together. Maybe more of just a question mark than a weakness, I would say. You have, honestly, a notable lack of depth at both offensive line and on the defense, especially. If you have an injury here or there, which, let's be honest, the Chargers are known for having an injury here or there. I think if you look at linebacker, edge, defensive back, they are really thin. So that's something to keep an eye on, is if this team can stay healthy, because I think it does actually matter more for the Chargers than anybody else that we've done so far, especially on defense. And then the other weakness, they are the Chargers. They seem to have this constant battle with the football gods, whether it's bad luck in close games or injuries, whatever it is holding the Chargers back, the lack of fans on top of that as well. They need to overcome that. That's a contributor to why this team only ranks 15th. But now it's time to talk about how many games I think this team ends up winning. And whoa, I was stunned to see that I had the Chargers coming out with a 12-5 record. And part of that is their schedule is easy as crap. This is the easiest schedule we've seen in this deep dive series so far. So let's get into it. I have them winning their first two games in the NFC East with Washington and Dallas. They do have to go to Kansas City week 3. I got a loss there, but then you get the Raiders at home. Nice bounce back week there. So I've got them going 3-1. Then you do have to play Cleveland and at Baltimore. So a couple of losses, in my opinion, there. but then you get a bye week, get to regroup, and then the rest of this thing is super easy. You got New England at home, at Philadelphia. I got them winning both of those. Minnesota at home, again, a winnable game, but I have them losing and then beating Pittsburgh the next week. I think they probably split those one way or another. And then you go at Denver, which I do have them losing, but again, winnable. At Cincinnati, just not as good of a roster. You got the Giants at home. The Kansas City Chiefs at home, not going to be easy, but I think they can beat them. You have at Houston, should be a win there without Watson. Denver at home, and then at Las Vegas, another win. So definitely a lucky break of sorts for this Chargers team that, let's be honest, is due for a little bit of luck. So I like this schedule. I think it's super favorable. This is my favorite over that we've seen so far, 9 wins. I think this schedule, that's at least a push. They can win 9 games with this schedule. So I have them going 12-5 with a floor of 8 wins and a ceiling of 14 wins based on the schedule, which is crazy. It's a reminder that, wins don't always equal how good I think a team is. But that said, I don't mind a little Super Bowl future on this team. I have it myself, and I had it before I saw this schedule. But now that I see this, I'm like, they could be in the conversation for winning this division with the schedule alone. Like, I think the Chiefs are probably going to have harder games. I don't know. We'll see. But man, this is exciting for the Chargers to see the schedule. I think if you get Herbert to take another step up, the offensive line clicks in, you get a couple of guys to step up on defense, this team really could shatter this 15th ranking and be in the Super Bowl mix. So we're going to end on a super positive note there with the Chargers. We've done that before with this Chargers team. It's worked for me before, and other times it's bit me in the ass. So this team is a roller coaster typically, hoping for that to stabilize now with Brandon Staley moving forward. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of the ranking here of 15, and who do you think comes next? Also hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy the series, and we'll see you guys in a few days for the reveal of our number 14 team. I appreciate you for watching. Cheers, and we'll see you for the next one.